You see this photo right here? This is me wandering the streets of downtown Santa Barbara just after 2:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, delirious, tired, at that stage where nothing else matters but finding a place to lay down and go to sleep. So I'm walking in the street, taking photos. Pretty good photo. I like it. I'm here to talk to you about the Santa Barbara Unified School District Board meeting, this epic 8-hour meeting. It was unreal. I was going to do a top 10 list, but I want to spend some time on just like a few issues. So this is just going to be Josh kind of talking about my observations of the meeting. And hopefully somebody at the district is listening, somebody on the school board is listening, because this was a hugely monumental, significant meeting within this 8 hours that we all had to be there. And some people were there even longer because they got there before the actual time the meeting started. So I got a lot to say about this meeting, which was just, oh my goodness, this was grueling, no doubt. First, if you're new to this podcast, please hit subscribe on YouTube and visit santabarbaratalks.com and consider making a contribution to support this series. I do this all on my own, separate from my other work. So please, if you like what I do, please help me keep doing it and pay for my time to expand the audience. Okay, so Santa Barbara Unified School District met. They started on Tuesday, they ended on Wednesday to discuss sending out pink slips, layoff notices to teachers. And the thing was there was a huge, massive uproar, outcry from music teachers, theater teachers, arts teachers, and kids who are part of the program and parents. And they showed up at this meeting outraged. They saw the agenda come out the Friday before, very little notice, obviously the minimum amount of notice by the Brown Act, and they showed up. There were something like 80, 85 speakers who filled out slips to talk. This was a big deal. And what do they want? They're saying, hey, school board, don't cut music teachers, don't cut art teachers, don't cut theater teachers. These are the classes that really impact people and make a difference in the lives of so many students. And if you're looking to cut because you're having budget problems, look elsewhere, right? Keep the cuts away from the classroom. They don't want cuts to any of the classes, but the people who showed up were predominantly the theater, music, arts teachers, okay? So they show up, it's setting the stage for this incredible meeting, okay? This meeting went 8 hours. It they didn't start talking about this. They had a couple other items on the agenda first. The actual amount talking about this was probably almost 7 hours. Okay. So, and there was at least 3 hours of public comment. So I want to talk to you about the school board. I want to talk to you about this incredible, monumental moment brought on by new board member Celeste Caffrey. I want to talk about Gabe Escobedo, the new chair. I want to talk about the tone of the meeting. I want to talk about Bill Banning and his tone and Hilda Maldonado. Now, I'm not, it's not my role to tell the school district what to do in terms of how they make cuts and how they spend their money. Obviously, they have plenty of people with strong views, and hopefully they're listening to them. But I do want to talk about, again, this issue of public perception and the way that you treat the public as a journalist, as a member of the public. I'm able to experience these things, and I have enough time invested in the community that I feel comfortable talking about it. And so that's what I want to do today. So think about this. You have all these parents, all these kids coming up over and over and over saying, don't cut the arts. And the school board, I want to start with Bill Banning, board member Bill Banning. Now, okay, Bill Banning, I just have to tell you, and I'm happy to have coffee with you sometime, you're overthinking it. It's too much. You're overthinking this process. Bill Banning recited his resume. He talked about how he was a band leader, everything he's done related to music in the meeting. I mean, this is like 1 in the morning, 1:30 a.m. or so. And you've got kids in the room who need to go to school in the morning. You've got teachers who need to teach in the morning. You've got members of the public, journalists who need to work the next day. Okay. And Bill Banning made it about himself as some way to make it like, oh, these people should not get so upset about the way he's going to vote because he loves band and he loves music. Okay. That's not the time or the place to be talking about you. Don't talk about yourself when you have a whole bunch of teachers and kids in the audience who are terrified that they're going to lose their jobs or their classes are going to be cut. This is not the time to talk about that. You're a board member. You should be focusing on them, not yourself, especially when you're doing it as a total tactic to make it, to soften it, to make it look like you're not such a mean guy for wanting to cut the arts. Okay. Bill Banning, you're overthinking it. You recited your years of experience in government, and you sort of like created this layer of entitlement and privilege, and like I know this stuff. I'm smart because I've been doing it forever, and that may be true, but that messaging is not appropriate in that moment because in this moment, even though you know so much and you are familiar with the whole process of overissuing layoff notices and then withdrawing them. And at the end, it's not as bad as everyone thought. Even though you've been through that over the years, over and over, we're talking about this moment in 2025. This is different than those moments. There may be similarities, you may have experience, but that your experience does not matter when we're talking about people who, for the first time, we're talking about 14, 15, 16, 17 year olds in the room. Like, they don't want to hear that because it's not relevant to them. They want to hear you say, we care about the arts and we want to save that program. So, Bill, please stop overthinking it. And you come across as condescending. And I know you don't want to come across that way. The other thing is, I don't know, it's like 2 in the morning and you actually said, there is no effort here to lay off arts teachers. There's no plan to lay off theater teachers. Like, what are we doing there? What is everybody doing there for the last 7 hours then? It is so condescending because you're trying to like make this distinction between this technical distinction. Obviously, the board vote does not mean these people are getting laid off. The way it works is we have to do this amount, and then it's up to the site leaders at the various schools to come up with the master schedule based on enrollment, based on interest, and then those decisions are made later. So obviously, yes, tonight we're not saying this person's gone, that person's gone. But Bill, when you get there and say there's no plan to do that, it's like you're just insulting all of those families who've been in the room forever. Like, why are they here then? You make it either sound like A, they don't understand the action being taken, or two, you don't understand the action that's being taken. And the bottom line is both sides understand. You're just trying to make it look like it's not that bad in the moment. But that's just so condescending because why is everybody spending all of this time? The other thing Bill Banning said in this meeting was, and I'm going to get to Celeste Caffrey in just a minute. He said that he could not have a special meeting. The board could not have a special meeting to follow up on all of this, to think about line by line where to make these cuts because there wasn't enough time. And then he said, I mean, the board needs to talk about this. And I'm paraphrasing, but he says, how are we going to meet without these people taking up 3 hours of our time in public comment? And it's like, Bill, what is wrong with you? Don't say that. He actually, like, because there were some groans in the audience, he kind of backpedaled a little and kind of took it back later in the meeting, saying he had phrased it incorrectly. But that's a problem, Bill. Like, you can't cut, slice, poke, and then say, oh, I'm sorry I did that. I didn't mean to do that. Like, just don't do it. You're in a position of leadership and power. The public wants to comment and they have a right to comment. And it's not their fault that you scheduled the meetings are scheduled the way they are, which I'm going to get to in a second. Okay. So that's comes across very poor. So I really urge you, Bill, you're very smart. You have a whole history in this, superintendent. You know your finance, but let's not forget that when you are a board member, you do not work for the school district. You do not work for Hilda. You are an overseer. And so you do have that power to do things differently. And when you're condescending, when you overthink, when you tell people they don't understand it as well as you do, and you say that they're taking up your board time to discuss these matters, all of that comes across as really unprofessional and just condescending and mean. And I don't think that anybody gained, I don't think you gained any fans, any support coming out of that meeting. Um, so that's one thing that struck me as I was sitting there for 7, 8 hours. Well, eight. I got there at 6, and it went, all the way to that time. I got there a little before 6, actually, but we don't care about me. I'm talking about them and the families. Okay, so we have this issue with the meeting going this long. I can tell you that speeches were fumbled, people lost their train of thought. Everything takes longer at that time of the day, right? Like, I mean, myself, when I've got to crank out a story, when I've got to grade papers, it's easy for me to like do it in the evening, right? But I'm much less efficient than if I just wake up in the morning and do all of that. And that's just human nature. So the idea that you've got 5 elected members, a student trustee, by the way, Eric Gonzalez, who like props to him for sticking it out, and he had actually substantive comments toward the end of it. And you got 200 people at the school board meeting at 2 in the morning. Like, there's a problem. Something went wrong here. This should not be happening. And so I've heard this. Like, I know the whole deal. The school board, they meet every 2 weeks. They meet at 5:30, closed session. They start the meeting at 6. Blah 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 blah. Okay, school district, you need to cut off all the excuses for why there's such poor agenda management when it comes to scheduling these meetings. Like, the public can figure it out. The journalists can figure it out. We can read an agenda and say, "Oh, that's going to be a long meeting." So if you're the ones putting it on the agenda, you can say, oh, that's going to be a long meeting, so we better start it earlier, or we better do it in a bigger room where people can actually be in the same room as the board members. By the way, I mean, the irony and I'm a massive supporter of equity and inclusion and making all students feel supported. We need to do more of that and push back against the federal government's efforts to stop all of that, because that is insanity. And I know the school board is too. I know the school district is too. So the idea that it's okay to have these meetings and have 100 people in this overflow room with a hallway in the middle, in the back, watching it on TV, that's not inclusion. Like, that makes them feel like far away, and then it takes longer for them to come talk. Like, you need to figure out a way when you have these meetings to do them at any other your properties with lots of seating, whether that's the Marjorie Luke Theater, what if it's another school site, an auditorium. You need to look at that. There's nothing wrong to do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, because it just creates this us versus them mentality. I'm a journalist and I walk around and I'm comfortable and I can move, right? I would do that. But think about the message you're sending to the kids, the families. Like, there's not enough space up here, but by the way, our cabinet members, they can be in this room. All right, that's not inclusion. That's not sending a good message when we're trying to say that we want everybody to have equal access to opportunity, but you're not even giving these people from the public an opportunity to be in the same room with you and look at you and be able to comment without, having to trek from the back of the room or outside. There were people outside on the school district patio. Okay, that's not inclusion. These meetings, no one should be talking this late. It's insanity. It's ridiculous. Think about what you're doing to the kids. And so you're saying, well, Josh, we had a March 15 deadline to submit these layoff notices. And if we didn't submit them, then have to keep everyone. And then our budget problems are going to grow. Okay, there has to be some workaround at that. Like, you can't tell me that you couldn't have had a 2-part meeting starting last week, 2 weeks ago, with the final vote tonight or final vote on Tuesday. Like, where there's a will, there's a way. When you want to find a solution, you find a solution. But I do know this too, is that brains do not work that late at night. Like, at that late at night, you just want to go to sleep. You just want to stop everything you're doing, because you start to shut down and to think about these board members making these important decisions that affect people. It's not right. So I don't know how you do it. I mean, I do know how you do it. You have the meetings earlier. As early as you can have them, you have them. You have them over multiple sessions. You start them earlier in the day. Okay, you start them at noon One, two, you say public comment's going to be exactly at 5 o'clock. You're not going to schedule anything else on the agenda, just that one thing. It's not that complicated. The message that it sends is we're going to try to do this as late as possible so people will go home and we don't have to make this issue in their faces. We don't have to look them in the eye. Well, that strategy did not work because 200 people stuck around to the bitter end. Okay. So you've got to do better. It's stop overthinking it. It is not that complicated. I'm not telling you how to balance your budget. I'm telling you how to run a meeting. It is not that complicated. So please consider that. I want to give a shout out to Gabe Escobedo, the new board chair. He's in a very tough spot. You can see on his face when watching him that he carries the emotion of everything right there on his face, and he's flummoxed, he's concerned, he's anguished. It is obvious. And so you know his heart is in it and he's caring. And Gabe Escobedo actually suggested removing the specialists from the elementary schools out of the pink slip list. And he got support from that from a couple of members, a majority. So he's thinking about this. And he also went in there and tried to move some money around. He wanted to prioritize other cuts than the arts cuts. He didn't go all the way and say we should remove them. But it's easy to pick on the board chair if you're a member of the public because they're the leader of the board. But I got to tell you, I've been covering the board forever. I'm not even going to count. I don't want to do a Bill Banny on all of you. But Gabe, Gabe cares. Gabe is good. He gave people 2 minutes, or I think might have been three. He gave them a lot of time. One of the meetings they took so long, one of the reasons it took so long, he gave people time to talk and he listened and he cared. And it's so nice to have a board chair like him who is wearing all of those emotions on his sleeves, and he was very patient. He didn't, go back and forth. So he's new to this role as chair, and I thought he did a good job, even if he's not Celeste Caffrey in terms of his advocacy for the teachers, which I want to get to in a second. Okay, so props to Gabe. He's in a hard spot. If you're somebody who wants to run for higher office, school boards are not good places to start and this is like known for forever, because if you offend families, right, it's like you make more enemies than you make friends when you're a member of the school board. And so he's in a tough spot. I don't know what his political aspirations are. I know that he's very young and ambitious and smart and can be a tremendous public servant in a lot of different roles. But you can sort of see him saying, is this worth it? You just see it in his eyes. So I think people need to sort of understand that he's heart in the right place and he is trying his best. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about Celeste Caffrey, the newest board member. I want to tell you, I've never had a conversation with Celeste. I've never had a one-on-one with her. When she ran for school board, there was a little bit of electronic communication, like a Q&A type thing about her candidacy. I saw her speak at the Labor Day barbecue. I've never covered her in any significant way until this school board meeting. And wow, what a breath of fresh air. Okay, this is incredible. You almost never see this at public meetings where you have a board member, a city council member, a board of supervisor who is going this hard at the administration to come up with alternatives. Sadly, what happens most often is that people campaign and they say they're going to do these things, and then they get elected, and all of a sudden they become part of the problem. They become part of the administration and they become defenders of that institution that they said they were going to help overhaul, help change, help make more efficient. Well, Celeste Caffrey is a couple months in, and I have to tell you, it was stunning to watch her sit there and say, instead of cutting the arts, why don't we look at administration? And then she pulled out the audited financials and she said, administration spending has grown by this amount. Enrollment has dropped. Why are we increasing spending on administration and management, both at the school and the district sites? And she had the numbers there. right? This is active thinking. This is a way to try to come up with a solution. This is her trying to keep the cuts away from the classroom. And it was mind blowing. And I have to say, that it is great to see a strong person who is taking these stance. It's great to see a strong woman in elected office who is not being letting her positions and her views get bullied by any of the other board members. Okay, and I'm not accusing Bill Banning of bullying, but I am accusing him of I guess it's called mansplaining. Yeah, and I've been accused of that. Of course, I do that sometimes, and a lot of men do. It's like subconscious and all that. But Celeste Caffrey, she was not having it, and this is amazing. This is so good on her part because she's not going to sit there and say, just because you've been doing this forever doesn't mean that you're the only one with an opinion here. And she did the research. She recited the fact that she's got an MBA from UCLA. She has a education finance certificate from Georgetown University. She's smart, and she came up with solutions, and she flipped on her microphone. She countered. She explained herself. She defended her arguments. She did not sit there and let Bill Banning tell her what is right and what is wrong in the world. And this is why we elect people. Now, I'm not giving a wholesale endorsement. I am a journalist and I reserve the right to, report on any of the board members as needed in my stories, fairly, objectively, of course. So I'm not saying that any board member is perfect, but what I am saying is her ability to actively, critically think in this moment to try to find solutions was exactly in sync with what the public wanted. And there needs to be more of that. There needs to be more of a default presence, default attitude that says, wow, there's a lot of people. There's a petition with 1,200 signatures. Instead of me figuring out why they're wrong or why they don't understand it, let me start with them and then help me understand, district, why you feel the way you do. That's the attitude to have. And so Celeste Caffrey was off the chart. And I mean, she's going till 2 a.m, just wheeling and dealing, negotiating, making suggestions, coming back over and over and over. And she had a lot of help from board members who need a bill. She was great too in supporting her. And in the end, Celeste Caffrey said, she was not going to support this vote because the arts teachers, the music, the theater teachers were still in this list that would potentially receive pink slips. And that's exactly what we listened to about 80 people say before that they wanted the school district to do, to remove them from the list. And Celeste Caffrey, because the board majority would not support that, she voted no. And that is impressive. Now, Bill Banning, right? I heard you, right? I heard you say back of the napkin. I heard you say that we're going to put the district in more jeopardy if we don't do this. You realize that, AI could come to that conclusion, right? Like anyone, any budget person could use just A, B, C, D logic to come up with the logic you came up with. That's not why we elect our board members. We elect them to use logic, but then also increase or insert emotion, right, into logical decisions and combine them and come up with the best solution for everybody involved. We don't elect human beings to positions to just toe the solely logical AI, this is the best answer for this situation response. We elect people who can use those soft skills, those cooperation, the negotiation, who can look people in the eye and say, there must be a compromise here. That's what we look for when we vote for people, okay? With the federal government level, and I'm not comparing Bill Banning to anyone at the federal level, but the federal level, like you have just heartless people saying, cut, 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 cut. Overspending, 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 inefficient. That's not right, obviously, okay? So we elect our people to be human beings to solve problems based off of all the information. And if you're just going to sit there and say, this is the way we do it, this is why we do it, this is ed code, it's not going to be that bad, I don't even know what you're contributing because you could literally have a robot say that. I mean, that's obvious. Everyone knows that. And it's so condescending to suggest that people don't understand that process. They understand it. They want something more, something better. And Celeste Caffrey took she drew a line in the sand. I think that anyone watching that meeting realizes that she is not going to just vote lockstep just because the board majority. That was the problem with the previous board. All those people are amazing. I like them. But you can't have a board that's just going to defer to the superintendent. That's not why you get elected. You don't get elected so that you can oversee someone and allow them to be your boss. You get elected to be their boss and to set the direction, okay? And push back if things are wrong. And they'll respect you in the long run, right? Like you may think that, oh, if I go along with the superintendent or the city manager or the, city administrator, that they're gonna like me, right? They don't. I mean, they're like, I got you, right? That's what they're thinking. Like, I'm in control here, and you don't even know it. They're gonna respect you a lot more if you push back, so they can say, "Wow, I couldn't pull anything with that person. They were watching, and they were working, and they were doing their best for the kids, and together we came up with a better solution." So that's what Celeste Caffrey was trying to do, and who knows what's going to turn out. It was just, this first meeting over 8 hours, but I thought she did a very impressive job this first time, just at the very least, just saying, hey, let's look at some other solutions, which oddly is so rarely seen in government these days. So that's what I wanted to say about that school board meeting. I don't mind working that late. I've covered meetings forever in my life, and I actually love it. Like it's so fun. I enjoy work. I'm a workaholic. I've been working since I was a small child. It's not difficult for me, but it isn't fair to those kids and those families and those teachers to make them wait that long. The school district needs a culture change. They need a attitude adjustment. They need to be able to change this tone of us versus them and this attitude of defensiveness because it's not getting better. These things are just blowing up over and over and over. And we had the teacher salary thing, the Hilda Maldonado thing. It's not getting any better. And it's just if you've got people who aren't willing to understand the other side, or they're saying, "Oh, I get you, but I'm smarter than you, so deal with it." It's explosive. It's not the best way to do it. So I'm hoping the school district will figure out a way to change their meetings, have them differently when they have a lot of this stuff on the agenda, and ultimately just listen to the people. Now, the people aren't always right, but they're the ones who experience the impact of the actions and the policies that you set. So they certainly have a humongous stake in the conversation. And you got to listen and find compromise. And if a whole bunch of people are telling you one thing, you can save us all a lot of time and heartache and hassle by just listening and doing what they're saying and figuring out a way to find the money elsewhere. No one's going to get upset if you cut cabinet positions, people who aren't even spending a majority of their time in this city. And those are people, and that's sad too. But when you talk about absorbing impact, those kind of positions can absorb the impact a lot more than a new teacher in the district and a kid ultimately just trying to appreciate these important electives, the music, and learn and grow and change his lives, which they all said. So that's where the focus should be. Focus should not be on technical process based off of your years of experience. So that's all. Hit subscribe on YouTube. Visit Santa Barbara Talks. Make contribution. Have a great day. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you out there. Take care.